We are transmitting live from San Diego, California, from the studios of KPBS on the campus of San Diego State University. Greetings to our participants in Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Paraguay, Brazil, Bolivia, Argentina, and other countries in Latin America. We would also like to welcome our distinguished viewers here in the United States. And we would like to thank once again Telecomunicaciones de México, Panamsat, and Brazilsat for their satellite linkage services which allow us to reach all of you through the wonders of telecommunications. Welcome to the program The Fifth Discipline, Systems Thinking and TQM, the first video conference in our 1996 series, Strategies for Global Competitiveness. My name is Armando Osorio and I will be your moderator for this video conference. We would like to remind the coordinators at each received site to collect the attendance sheets for your sites and mail them to the International Training Center, along with a list of participants interested in obtaining the certificate or diploma for this series of programs. As in the past, this program is composed of 2 presentation modules and 2 question and answer sessions. We look forward to your participation. Competitiveness is the key to success for today's businesses. Systems thinking is the backbone of a world-class organization. Introduced formally by C.W. Churchman in the 60s and applied later by Deming in his continuous improvement quality teachings, and more recently renamed by Peter Senge the Fifth Discipline, the systems approach seems to be the answer to the increasing complexities of government, business, and education as we leap into the 21st century. Organizations, regardless of their size or type of business, must incorporate a broad interdisciplinary integrating focus to their everyday operations, to decision-making, to problem-solving, and in their plans for growth and development. Only through this integrated approach can we find viable and consistent solutions to the growing and ever more complex problems that our organizations face. Total quality management is in essence the application of a systems approach to an organization. Today's video conference will offer insight and practical guidelines to be able to incorporate systems thinking into our organizational culture as we strive for global competitiveness and excellence in our organizations. It is my pleasure to present to you today our guests and expert speakers, Dr. David Chaudron and Mr. George Wolf. Dr. Chaudron, originally trained in industrial organizational psychology, has assisted numerous firms worldwide in their efforts to improve profitability and increase employee involvement. He has experience working with the organizations in manufacturing, financial services, banking, electronics, and petrochemical industries. Dr. Chaudron is a frequent lecturer on quality for organizations such as the Institute for Quality and Productivity, the American Society for Quality Control, and the Manufacturing Institute. He has authored over a dozen articles on total quality, organizational change, and a columnist for the President Newsletter, a publication of the American Management Association. Mr. Wolf is professor at the University of California in Long Beach and president of GWA, a management consulting and education firm specializing in improving productivity and quality. As senior operations manager for Baxter Healthcare, Unisys, and General Motors, Mr. Wolf has gained broad, functionally diverse business experience. Mr. Wolf has more than 10 years of international consulting experience. His GWA clients include Aramco, Saudi Arabia, Unisys, McDonnell Douglas, and Nissan, among others. He is also associate professor at Cal State University in Fullerton, California. Welcome, gentlemen. Before we begin, I would like to ask you both the following question. Why has systems thinking become popular again in today's business and professional environment? And why is systems thinking so important for global competitiveness?
One of the main reasons is because our old approaches to problem solving simply have not worked. We suffer the consequences of using the one problem at a time approach today, day in and day out, in all of our daily business dealings and our dealings with society. As a result, we've had to rethink in terms of how we deal with problems, and using this approach, we can use systems thinking to solve these issues.
We understand that under a competitive atmosphere, what we have to do is speed the time of response to things and cut out the extra work that's being undertaken. We also understand now that the work that's undertaken by organizations is done in systems or in processes. And therefore, if we're going to make these kind of gains, we really have to study how the systems work and then make the necessary changes. Oftentimes in these studies, the changes are very resistant, and that's where the new fifth discipline comes in to help us go through those kind of processes and get the people involved to make the changes required so we can become more competitive.
Thank you, gentlemen. Before we begin our first module, we would like to welcome Dr. Alberto Fujimori, President of Peru, who is listening to us now in Peru. Thank you very much, and welcome, Mr. President. Now we are going to go ahead with Module 1, in which Dr. Chaudron will discuss the concept of systems thinking.
Thank you for allowing me to spend time with you to introduce a series of teleconferences to you and to discuss the foundation of the series, systems thinking. The problems that organizations face today are the same as when I spoke to you last. The world is undergoing rapid change, faster than before, if that is possible. The future is less known than it was only 12 months ago. Who could have predicted the phenomenal rise of the Internet this year? And who can say how it will inevitably change us? Organizations are still desperately trying to reinvent themselves, with many attempts unsuccessful. Whatever success they do have seems to be fleeting, with whatever modest improvements that occur occasionally causing more problems than they solve. Into this chaos steps Peter Senge, Director of Systems Thinking and Organizational Learning at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. In his book, The Fifth Discipline, The Art and Practice of the Learning Organization, Dr. Senge describes the problems that organizations face, the causes of these problems, and what might be done about them. According to Senge, the chaotic and often unsuccessful attempts at organizational change have 5 causes. They include the mental models of executives, the boiling frog problem, not realizing the nature and extent of what needs to change, and a 100,000-year-old habit. When I talk about mental models, I mean the webwork of beliefs, behaviors, and perceptions that make our way of believing how the world and the world of business works. When organizations are run by executives who are continually frustrated by their attempts to change the organization, management is characterized by defensiveness about new ideas and new ways of viewing the organizational problem. They receive filtered information and tend to reject any information that contradicts how they already think. Management is also fixated on solving problems in a piecemeal, one-at-a-time basis. In addition, management is numbed by the initial successes of short-range solutions, such as cost-cutting and layoffs. They suffer from a worldview principally determined by what function they perform in the organization. In other words, they lack a broadly based, cross-functional perspective on problems. Because of this, the head of engineering may make a decision that is best for the engineering department, but causes significant problems in manufacturing and shipment of your products. In addition to management's mental models, organizations also suffer from the boiling frog problem. The story goes that if you put a frog in water and gradually raise the temperature of the water, the frog won't notice. Eventually, the frog will become tomorrow's dinner, all unaware of the process. Like the frog, organizations can enter into a period of long-term decline. Gradual changes are rarely perceived. A product that you manufacture or service you perform may be exactly what the customer wanted 10 years ago, but conditions and competitors change. In reaction to this, many organizations try quick fixes, such as a new promotional campaign, put a few quality improvement teams together, or put their customer representatives through customer satisfaction training. Unfortunately, these fixes rarely work in the long term. Usually, longer-term decline has multiple systemic causes and is rarely cured with a Band-Aid. In addition, these quick fixes give management the illusion that they are doing something, however ill-advised. These fixes tend to anesthetize them to the real underlying causes behind their long-term failure. If this situation were not bad enough, mankind suffers from a problem from the beginning of our species. In our ancestors' world, people had one of two reactions to a problem: either fight it or run away. Problems such as broken stone tools or need for firewood were solved one at a time. Solutions that fixed a problem in the short term were okay, because people didn't live long enough to suffer the consequences. If conditions became bad enough, they just moved on to more plentiful hunting grounds or greener pastures. Unfortunately, this solution will no longer work because we have run out of new places to move. In addition to individual or small group decisions could do little damage because of their limited technological resources. Today, however, senior management can make choices with long-term consequences for a town, a city, a forest, or an entire ecosystem. What all of these causes add up to in the business world is an equation for doing nothing. The defensiveness of management, in combination with filtered information and long-term gradual decline, means that management often perceives little need for change. At best, they may talk about change, but may put together briefings on employees on how important it is for the organization to change or create new advertising material. Last year, we talked about the similarities and differences between reengineering and TQM. Reengineering uses the tools of large-scale change, such as fundamental process change, changing market strategies, and strategic thinking. TQM, on the other hand, emphasizes incremental methods of change, such as problem solving, forming quality improvement teams, and training. Regardless of which of these methods you use, management can still fall into the traps I just talked about. Management can rely on these tools as quick fixes, so that quality is the answer. Implementing a buzzword and forming a quality improvement team to work on incremental solutions can be blindly used without the rethinking of mental models that organizational change requires. Senge's solution to solve these serious organizational problems is for management to master 5 disciplines: personal mastery, mental models, shared vision, team learning, and the 5th discipline, systems thinking. Personal mastery, despite its name, is an ongoing process of learning rather than a fixed outcome of achieving a high standard of competence. It comes from creating or defining a personal vision for oneself, an inner belief consistent with one's values and what one wishes to achieve. This interpersonal vision does not come from reason, logic, and forethought, but intuition, feeling, and insight as well. Creating this personal vision also means realizing that a creative tension exists between what one wishes to become and how one is acting now. This vision requires nothing less than the deepest commitment to openness and the truth, however painful that may be. According to Senge, the main barrier to achieving this personal mastery is feelings of personal unworthiness. These feelings of unworthiness can lead all of us to believe that there is no way to achieve our vision, and the difference between what we are and what we might be is too high a mountain to climb. In addition to creating a personal vision, management must change their mental models of how they believe the organization works. There is no new model to which everyone must conform, but management must continually use the process of developing a new model. Management must be willing to go through 5 stages of development to accomplish this. The first stage, perhaps the hardest, is a willingness to take risks and a willingness to listen. They then must be willing to articulate their assumptions about how the organization works and then challenge these assumptions. One of the best ways of challenging these assumptions is to experience different models or ways of viewing events. This can be done using experiential exercises or computer simulations of business practices. These steps lead to a change in mental models. In addition to a personal vision, management must create excitement and enthusiasm for a vision shared by all in the organization. Contrary to how this process is often implemented, creating a shared vision is not a one-time only process. Instead, as with personal mastery and mental models, it is an ongoing process. A video conference later in this series entitled The Learning Organization, Vision and Management Opportunities will elaborate on the process of developing a shared vision. In addition to helping individual employees learn, management must help whole teams learn and grow together. Team learning is facilitated by three factors: dialogue, alignment of vision, and openness. Dialogue is a unique term in learning organizations. Distinctively different from discussion, dialogue involves actively hearing other perspectives and encouraging them to be articulated. This skill and exchange of information is closely akin to the active listening style advocated by many of those who help build teams. The next teleconference in this series, entitled Managing Groups and Diversity, will delve further into this topic. Senge's fifth discipline is the most important. Systems thinking is a radical change in perspective, a hard break from our species' habit of solving one problem at a time. Systems thinking requires you to consider the ripple effects of change, to consider organizations as cohesive wholes rather than separate, isolated functions. Though this may sound like a chaotic view of an organization, systems tend to react consistently to change, such as pushing a system creating its own resistance. Systems and applying them to organizations did not start with Dr. Senge. Systems concepts were originally applied in biology to what are now called ecosystems. Its application in business started in the 1960s in the Tavistock Institute in England. The first system study was the longwall method of coal getting, in which technical systems, such as the methods of extracting coal, had a significant effect on the social systems and group dynamics of the organization. In addition, researchers also realized the social systems of the organization had a significant effect on the productivity of the mine. These findings were integrated with other thoughts into what is now called the socio-technical systems approach. The initial books published in the field were C. West Churchman in '68 and Kotzen Kahn in '68 as well. One of the most important aspects of systems is the ripple effects of change. Like pebbles dropped in a pond, organizational change rarely affects only one part of the system. Changes in a manufacturing process can significantly affect the relationships between line workers and engineers. Allowing more authority to line workers may make supervisors feel less secure than they are now. Organizations often do not use this principle to their advantage. They often use techniques such as quality improvement teams that are focused at the bottom levels of the organization. Unfortunately, there is little leverage in such techniques, and the positive ripple effects tend to be small. Organizational change must be positioned so that the change has a significant ripple effect and is timed appropriately so it can coincide with other organizational changes. These ripple effects happen because organizational systems are linked together. Though it may sound paradoxical, it is maybe easier to change the whole organization than to change one resistant part. This is because pushing a system to change often creates resistance to build in the opposite direction. This can cause the system you are trying to change to snap back into place. Systems also have consistent reactions to change. The system, regardless if it is an individual, group, or organization, typically goes through 4 stages in a reaction to threat or stress in the environment. At first, systems often ignore whatever change takes place due to the defensiveness and filtered information I talked about before. At this point, people are willing to do nothing because they think the change or problem in the environment isn't there or it will go away by itself. If this strategy doesn't work, systems repeat what has been successful in the past or make modest changes. In the case of organizations, they may use incremental methods of change, such as changes in advertising, forming quality improvement teams, or exhorting employees to work harder. If this strategy is not successful, the threat is close by and looms large in the eyes of management. Then and only then will systems be willing to undergo large-scale qualitative change. Such large-scale changes can include restructuring, re-engineering, and systems thinking. Just because organizations make large-scale change does not mean they will succeed. If the wrong decisions are made, timed poorly, or implemented too late to have an effect, the system may die. In the case of individuals, they may die or commit suicide. Groups may disband and its members commit warfare on one another, and organizations may go bankrupt. In addition to consistent reactions to change, systems also behave in other predictable ways. The first rule of systems is that success breeds its own limitations. This is because any solution to a problem, no matter how effective or efficient, is not a perfect solution. Because of this, what solution you come up with will not completely remove the root cause of the problem you are trying to solve. This leftover, unsolved portion of the problem eventually accumulates until it overwhelms whatever positive effects the solution made. Eventually, these leftovers accumulate until management notices them. In an organization that is defensive and not open to new information, the second rule of systems is that management tends to, in Senge's words, shift the burden to the outside. That is, they start blaming others rather than fixing systems. The third rule of systems is that it is easier to remove limitations than to push the system. Pushing the system by raising tension, anxiety, and fear has long-term negative effects. Pushing will also tend to make the system push back. Removing limitations, such as giving employees authority and encouraging people to challenge the assumptions of their mental models, is more effective. This view of organizations as systems can be used in a variety of ways. The first way is to change the mental models of management. The second, to diagnose what is going wrong in organizations and find out what systems have problems. The third, to check for alignment and consistency among the systems themselves. Without such consistency and alignment, employees and customers receive mixed messages as to what the organization is trying to accomplish. The fourth is a method for wholesale organizational change. Something Senge did not discuss is what systems need changing. Over the last 30 years, many consultants have come up with checklists describing what systems exist in organizations. Based on a melding of a variety of models, there are 8 generic systems in organizations. These are the adaptation equilibrium system, task system, technology, information, policies and procedures, people, organizational structure, measurement, and rewards and recognition. The adaptation equilibrium system consists of an organization's mission, vision, market, and niches, its openness to change, and the consistency of its systems. The task system consists of the specific outputs of the organizations and what functions it performs. Such tasks include manufacturing, assembly, processing paperwork, and transferring funds. The technological system consists of an organization's machine, equipment, and materials. These technologies include office equipment, machinery, and computers. The information system consists of the formal system of communication, such as computers, email, reports, and memos, and the informal communication system, otherwise known as the grapevine, or word of mouth. The policy and procedure system consists of formal practices of the organization, its written procedures, and any documentation related to producing an organization's services or products. In addition, this system also includes how these procedures are carried out on a day-to-day basis. Such policies can include employment, termination, rules of conduct, and manufacturing procedures. The people system consists of employees' abilities, skills, and behavior, group dynamics and politics, demographic variables such as an employee's age and gender, and cultural factors such as language, customs, and religious views. Organizational structure is another system that has significant effect on organizations and is the primary cause of communication patterns between people. Organizational structure takes on a variety of forms depending on an organization's need. Organizations can be organized functionally, by product or service, by customer, geographically, or some combination of the above. Measurement is another important system. Measurements at the organizational level include return on investment, organizational climate, and customer satisfaction. Measurements at the group level include productivity, quality, and how conflict and consensus are handled. Measurements at the individual employee level include job satisfaction, productivity, and task accomplishment. The last major system is reward and recognition. This system includes pay, pats on the back, formal public recognition such as plaques and awards, and promotions. Rewards and recognition can include private thank yous, public ceremonies, awards, money, and company stock. All these systems combine to form a whole organization. Changing just one system is an incremental approach best suited for making minor organizational change. But to re-engineer and institute systems thinking, all of these must be examined, evaluated, and if necessary, changed. Thank you for allowing me to spend this time with you. I hope I've encouraged you to challenge your mental models and incorporate systems thinking into your organization.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudron. Let's begin the first question and answer session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. Therefore, we ask that only one question be asked per phone call, and that these questions be as brief as possible. You may call the studio directly at the phone numbers or fax number which now appear on your screen. We remind you to make your phone calls at a distance from the monitor to avoid feedback. First question is coming via fax from the Fundação Vansolini in Sao Paulo, Brazil. This is coming from the president of the foundation, Pedro Costaneto. Welcome your question. The question is not coming from the phone. It has come via fax. And systems thinking is nothing new since it was well known 30 years ago already. Then would you please explain what is the real and true contribution, what is the originality in Senge's theory?
The real value added, the real contribution that he made is to be publishing a book at just the right time. For the most part is that, as you suggested, the themes and concepts have been around for at least 30 years. What he has done, however, is managed to summarize them, encapsulize them, and get a fair number of organizations actually to use those principles in a successful way. In that particular way, he uses the power of publishing and of today's advertising to basically promulgate what has been around for a considerable period of time.
We are focusing in TQM, for example, on trying to develop our organizations. We've had experience now of the roadblocks and the difficulties that we run into in trying to implement these changes. What Senge is doing is really, he's giving us a much deeper understanding. He's talking about such abstract things as dialogue and discussion. Many times we want to make changes, but people come to the table with hidden agendas, things that you don't know how to handle. By reading Senge and really understanding what he's talking about, we can come up with better quality decisions and remove some of the roadblocks that we've experienced before in trying to implement organizational change.
This question is coming from Tamaulipas, Mexico, Ciudad Victoria, and the question is, what strategy can you suggest for us to share the vision with the personnel, particularly in the case of a health organization, for instance, health services?
In those kind of organizations, one needs to really be doing three different things. First of all, one is to make sure that everyone has received communication, whether it be a paper or email or fax, as to what that particular vision is. The second particular way of doing so is to actually encourage people at the senior management levels to talk on one-on-one in very small groups about their excitement concerning the vision. But thirdly, and most importantly, is that management must communicate the vision by its actions. By its actions being consistent with that vision, it will communicate the vision better than any words ever will.
We want to motivate our workforces. We want everybody to contribute to the improvement of health services and so forth. One way to do this, of course, is to have a shared vision, that this is the vision of this health organization. We are concerned with wellness. We have to have not just pass it down from the top, but the vision has to be accepted and really expressed by the people down below. Of course, the way we do this has to be an evolving situation. But one thing that Senge points out, for example, is to, first of all, understand what you're trying to do personally. What is your vision in this life? And how does the vision that you can finally articulate with other people, how does it become part of the vision of the healthcare organization? There has to be a getting together of this whole thing. It takes time to work out, but it's very important that people who work in these organizations share the vision and understand their benefits that they're going to receive from it also.
And the first call is coming from the Technological Institute from Serra Sul, Mexico, Veracruz. Dr. Chaudron, there is a lot of feedback. In what moment of the growth of a company is it more convenient, at what time, to apply the fifth discipline? At what stage do you think is the most appropriate thing to apply the fifth discipline?
If at all possible, one must apply systems thinking at the very beginning of an organization. That way is that the organization will be as flexible and as introspective and as action-oriented as it can be from the beginning. If such a change in thinking occurs later, it will, in essence, suffer significantly more resistance to change based on whatever existing systems and behaviors and patterns have already built up over the years.
I would agree. I think I would start right away. I think the philosophies and thoughts of Senge I would incorporate right as part of the whole TQM process. I think when we do teaming